And that's a daunting task, because the truth of who we are is underneath all the layers of what we believe, of what we've experienced. So in order to get to that truth, we have to go through the layers of what we believe and what we experience. And that's like trying to find a diamond in the rough. Okay? So we're all diamonds in the rough. We're all beautiful, shiny objects, that's a metaphor, just waiting to be discovered. And right now, these diamonds are covered by a whole bunch of stuff. And our work in this world at this time, if you are here, your job is to uncover this truth so that you can bring it out to the surface. Why is that important? Because it represents light, and you are a light worker. Hello, beautiful soul. Welcome to my channel. My name is Joanna. If this is your first time here, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for sharing your energy with me. I hope that whatever I deliver through my voice will be something that will be of benefit to you in your 3D and spiritual life. If you like this content, I would love for you to share. In fact, I would love for you to do me a favor and subscribe or share this channel with a friend. Ultimately, the more people understand themselves, the more people embody their true power, we will effectively create change in the world. And I am pretty sure that you're on board with that. So thank you so much for being here. For those of you who are returning, thank you again. Without you, I wouldn't do this, and I absolutely love what I do. I love connecting with my higher team, with my consciousness. I love connecting with source energy and bringing you information that is ultimately geared towards helping us all become better human beings. And that's because better human beings create a better world. So thank you so much for being a part of this. I have a feeling that this is going to be a time. I'm recording this just before the full moon. And oh, by the way, thank you for reminding me. If you see this before the Cyber Monday, I still have a once a year only promo that I offer for my sessions. So if you are wanting to work with me, or if you ever wanted to work with me and my team, go ahead and book yourself a session. I'm booked until, I believe, February right now. So if you're inclined to do so, if you feel that this is the right resonance with you, then I believe these prices will help you do just that. So thank you so much for choosing to work with me, if that's what you choose. And if you do end up booking with me, I look forward to working with you. And thank you for reminding me, every single person that books a session with me with the promo, with the Black Friday promo, will receive a 2024 zodiac signs at no extra charge. And it takes me a while to do these. I more than halfway through. So far, every single one of the signs are basically massive transformations. So my team is calling these transmissions Survival Guide for 2024. So if you book a session with me during this promo, you will receive absolutely free all 12 zodiac signs, probably over 12 hours of work, and that's just channeling alone. So thank you so much. Now, I am recording this just before the full moon, and we are also at the brink of December. And I feel like what wants to come through me is the energy that's associated with the full moon, but also one that is connected to the beginning of December, to the month of December. So full moon and December, it feels like the energy is very, this is what we're going to be talking about. Now, as we all know, you probably already know, that full moon represent endings, endings and new beginnings. So I said, okay, what is the energy of these quote unquote endings? And what I received was that it is a time of resolution of old conflicts. And if you've ever seen my videos or if you've worked with me, you know that I call myself the Queen of Shadows, because working with one's shadow in order to reclaim one's freedom is ultimately what I was designed to do. And so this energy will be reflective of the type of work that you might want to do in terms of facing your own shadows. And why would that be important? Because they said to me, we don't do spiritual bypass. It's my team basically being funny, saying that if you're, it's not you, but if you are someone who is wanting to do the spiritual bypass, this energy is not for you. I have no judgment around it, but my job, my team's job is to help us all get to the root of the problem, which is often found in our deepest shadows. And when we resolve a shadow, when we uncover the shadow, when we shed light on the shadow is no longer ineffectively. It effectively allows us to literally transform from dark to light. And that's a metaphor. So when they were talking to me about spiritual bypass, I'm like, what does this really mean? I actually had to look what spiritual bypass was, because I kind of had an idea, but I wasn't really sure. So spiritual bypass is a tendency of using spiritual practices and ideas to sidestep or avoid facing unresolved emotional issues, psychological wounds, and unfinished developmental task. And it's fair to say that there are many individuals out there who lived a spiritual bypass. They cling to their beliefs, but they don't live out their beliefs. In other words, I just heard the words, they're basically being frauds to themselves. Ooh, that's a powerful statement. And I'm not calling anybody out, but my work as Joanna with my team is to help us so that we don't get stuck in spiritual bypass. And that means basically avoiding things and ideas that we don't want to look at because it's not pretty, it's not convenient, and it's certainly not fun. But ultimately, those parts of ourselves end up living in the shadows, if you will. So we end up creating from our shadow space without even knowing that that's what we're doing. And spiritual bypass allows us to stay in our shadows. It doesn't help us move out of our shadows and out of our dark corners. So if you are watching this, you are obviously drawn to this energy, and you are on board with the whole idea of not doing the spiritual bypass. They're saying it is okay to understand something, but it is something quite different to actually move through that understanding. And a long time ago, they told me that wisdom is basically knowledge experienced. In other words, one way of saying it is, to experience that which we want, we need to look at that which is not allowing us to experience that which we want. I said simpler terms, please. In other words, when we don't face our shadows, we are creating and co-creating from a quote-unquote dark space. Dark does not mean bad. That's not what it means. It means from a space that is not seen, that is a shadow. And shadow always represents fear, pain, unresolved conflict. We can say to ourselves, all day, 24/7, that we are very spiritual. But if you are not practicing this spirituality, whatever that means, then we are basically doing spiritual bypass. And they're saying, if you're only working with spiritual knowledge from the perspective of logic and concepts, then your understanding of yourself as a spirit is one of conceptual understanding and not one of an experience. And in other words, we can talk all we want about spirituality, but until we actually walk the talk, we're not really being spiritual. Okay? And it's time to walk the talk, or at least realize what talk are we walking? What are we, how do I say this, please? I'm just trying to get the energy back. Walking your talk means say what you mean what you say. If you don't know what you mean, or if you don't know what you mean, or if you're not sure on the meaning of what you want to say, don't say it. On the other hand, if you do want to say something, make sure that you understand the meaning of what you're saying. And oftentimes we don't have visibility to that because we are acting out of our shadows. We often say things we don't mean, and we don't understand why we're saying them. Anger is one of them. Sometimes we will say things out of anger because we want to be mean. And this meanness serves us in some way, otherwise we wouldn't do it, we wouldn't practice it. Now, of course, the energy of meanness is one that is not very welcome. Why would anyone want to be mean too? To be mean is not a pleasant experience. Yet we are being mean to each other all the time, especially on social media. The question is why? Why are we doing that? Why are we attacking each other? What's going on in order to create this environment where we are constantly at war? Spiritual bypass. So again, if you are here, if you're listening to this, I hope that this information is going to be helpful in order for you to get unstuck or maybe face off some of your old shadows. Shadows being shadows are often unseen. So my team's job is really to highlight some things that you might want to see or that you might want to look at, or highlight something that you need to see in order to look at it so that you can free yourself, whatever that may be for you. And this information is going to come through Joanna's voice, and you will hear it the way it's meant to be heard by you. Rather than this being an intellectual conversation, it's more of an energy frequency upgrade is what I'm getting. So each and every one of you listening to this information, to this transmission, is receiving a certain level of light codes that are going to help you reflect on your own inner conflict so that you can bring it up to the surface and so that you can effectively deal with it so it is no longer a conflict. Anger is the result of some conflict, inner conflict. In other words, why are we angry? Why is society angry? Well, there's a lot of reasons for it. All we have to do is look on the outside and go, oh my God, that makes me so angry. Yes, of course, but the outside isn't happening by itself. It's not an entity that does what it wants to do. The outside is the result of what is happening in the inside with each and every one of us. We co-create our world's experience. So if there is a lot of anger out there, we are creating it. It's a hard one, okay? Because you might look at yourself and say, well, I'm not creating anger at the world. I'm not doing that. Well, you may not be, but collectively you are part of it, which means there is some part of anger within you, perhaps that is unresolved. And this is not a diss at anybody. Anger is a very strong, very powerful emotion and can be used and utilized in various different ways. Hurt is one of them. But do we really want to hurt? Do we want to be hurtful? Do we want to be hurting other people? No. Do we want to hurt ourselves? Absolutely not, yet we do. All the time without even knowing it. When we don't believe in ourselves and truly for who we are essentially hurting ourselves. I said, how is that hurting? When you don't know who you are because you haven't looked deep enough, you are effectively hurting yourself. Why? How? Because you're not being truly you. You're not being truly you, and that's painful. And you are here in the world, as I am Joanna, in order to move out of that. Okay? So, going back to the spiritual bypass, if you are looking for a spiritual bypass, these messages will not be for you because they are often very, I want to say the word sharp, not sharp because they're hurtful, but sharp because they're meant to expose. And this energy actually feels a little bit confrontational. But I don't mind it. It's not a malice. It's a, here's what I'm saying. Look, you've wanted help. You've asked for help. We're going to give you help. The question is, will you take the help and run with it? That's up to each and every individual. So my team is very straightforward, as you can tell, and that is a good quality because sometimes cutting through the mud very quickly, although it can feel uncomfortable in the moment, it's actually dealing with something in a very effective way so that we no longer have to ever deal with it again. And that's the kind of energy that I'm channeling right now. The word resurrection came up. And I had to look up because, again, I have some idea what it means, but I wanted to look up the definition. Resurrection is essentially coming back to life. And I wrote, former self before we took on the bodysuit and the ideologies that come with being a human. So this full moon and this energy of December, but I feel like it's going to keep going on for a while, is about releasing ourselves from our old paradigms, effectively coming back more to the truth of who we are. And that's a daunting task because the truth of who we are is underneath all the layers of what we believe, of what we've experienced. So in order to get to that truth, we have to go through the layers of what we believe and what we experience. And that's like trying to find a diamond in the rough. Okay? So we're all diamonds in the rough. We're all beautiful, shiny objects, that's a metaphor, just waiting to be discovered. And right now, these diamonds are covered by a whole bunch of stuff. And our work in this world at this time, if you are here, your job is to uncover this truth so that you can bring it out to the surface. Why is that important? Because it represents light, and you are a light worker. At least the chances of you being a light worker or a starseed listening to this are very, 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 very high. I don't believe anyone would be drawn to this energy if they were not aligned with that. So just by you listening to this, you can consider yourself a light worker, okay, or a starseed, or various other names. So as we enter this new month and the full moon, which is really releasing ourselves from the old and welcoming new, it is not a time of avoiding the work that needs to be done on the inside. Example, if you want to experience freedom, you first have to understand yourself from the perspective of what is not allowing you to feel free. And that's because chances are, if you're listening to this, you are a free human being. I suspect if you are listening, you are a free human being, but you may not feel free. Certainly, some emotions have a hold on you that may perhaps make you feel trapped. You don't think about it every day, but it's there somewhere deep in your psyche. And whatever that entrapment is, it's an entrapment of a part of you, which means if a part of you is trapped, then you cannot fully experience yourself fully. And this time is about understanding our own entrapments. How do we hold ourselves back? How do we limit ourselves from the understanding of who we really are? And we can look at that through discovering or uncovering our own inner conflicts, because conflicts create separation. Having an inner conflict, you are in effect in separation of yourself, and when you are in separation of yourself, you will not feel whole. That's the whole idea of separation, is opposite of whole. Yet we are here on planet Earth to experience more wholeness. That is our duty, if you will. That is why our spirit showed up here in this physical body, so that we can engage with and experience and embody more wholeness. And when everyone begins to embody their own inner wholeness, we will effectively experience more wholeness in the world. Not separation. So we have to look at our own separate aspect of ourselves, or aspects, and realize that as long as we are in separation of ourselves, we will be expressing separation out into the world, and we will be experiencing more separation. It's an all inside job. You are brave for being here. You are brave for doing this. You are brave for showing up and listening to this information and saying to spirit, to your guides, I need help. Because help is always on the way. It may not always be delivered in the way you would like to have it delivered, but help is always in the way. So in essence, you asking for help are acknowledging that you need help. And there's nothing wrong with asking for help. I ask Joanna, I need help all the time. Spirit, please help me understand this. Okay. The fact that you are doing that voluntarily is just another level of awareness. In other words, what you are saying is, I realize there is something more to me. I need help in order to help me realize that. And that's the kind of help that we are sharing with you today. So I do have 3 piles, and each pile will represent a theme that you might be likely experiencing over the next little while, especially right around the full moon and going into December. But then I feel it moves past December. And let's see what Spirit has to say. I was also asked to use runestones. Okay, I practiced runestones maybe 5 times. So when they said use runestones, I'm like, ooh, that's uncomfortable. And they're like, precisely. So I am being asked to go out of my comfort zone and do things in a way that I haven't done them before, which makes me feel uncomfortable. But I said, okay, what the heck? I have notes here, what the runes means, because I've never worked with them, and they're supposed to go with the messages that I'm going to share with you, which I don't know what they are yet. So if I am being asked to do something uncomfortable, chances are that you will be asked to do something uncomfortable, or the universe will place something in front of you, and it'll be suggested that you go for it, but you're going to be like, I don't know if I can do this. The question is, can you? Because if it's in front of you, chances are you can. The question is, are you willing to? Do you desire? And if so, how? And a little bit of faith. We are all in transition, and the transition denotes moving from something old to something new. What is the new? Well, we don't know yet. Maybe we're quote-unquote not supposed to know yet. And I'm talking to you now specifically. So if you are going through something and you don't know what the hell is going on, I hope these messages will find you in a way that will help you go, okay, I understand why this might be this, or why this might be happening, or I understand my situation a little bit better, or let me look into my situation and see what I can find. Practice makes perfect. What does that mean? Practice being yourself all the time. And there's a message within that. When we are practicing being ourselves, whatever that means to you, then we are practicing being more of our true nature. On the other hand, when we are holding ourselves back, we are not practicing being ourselves. We are practicing the limited self. Now, is there anything wrong with that? Absolutely not. Source doesn't see things as right or wrong. To Source, it's all information. But we may not want to be having the experiences that we are having, in which case we have to ask ourselves this very important question. If I'm having this experience and I don't want to have this experience, then what is this experience showing me about me? Now, there will be those people who will say, well, I have a family who is struggling. How on earth, what possibly could there be any purpose behind that for me or the individual? And Source would look at you and say, this is how you get to know yourself through this experience, which includes this individual. Everything in life has a reason, and everything in life has a source of particular situation. We may not always know what the source is. In fact, we don't know what the source always is. But we can move closer to knowing what the source is by understanding ourselves deeper. They're also reminding me to say this to you. They said, be the resource and the source both at the same time. Took me a few minutes just to wrap my head around that, and basically what it means, I believe, be the source and the solution. So what does it mean? This is a message for all of us. What does it mean to be the source and the solution? Well, the way I understand it in my analytical mind is that we are the source of what is, and we also have the answers. So we are creators, and we have solutions. We contain within us solutions. In other words, we contain within us the power of creation, and with that power comes the understanding that anything we could ever want is within us as well. That is a hard one to grasp for a human mind, because, well, human will look inside and says, I don't have anything inside, it's my intestines. It's because they're looking from the purely, strictly 3D human perspective. And to know yourself fully, we have to move beyond the strictly human perspective. Because at the end of the day, although we do have a physical body, we carry a physical body as a vehicle in this life. We are part of Source, which is light. So most people don't look at their arm and say, oh, that's light. They say, no, this is solid. Well, if you look at it close enough, it's not solid at all. It's a whole bunch of atoms bumping against each other with a whole bunch of space in between. Your energy. Okay. So let's move to pile number 1. What could you be expecting over the next several weeks? Okay. We have Justice in reverse. We have Boundaries in reverse, and we have Flexibility in reverse. So a lot of it is in reverse. I'm not a tarot reader, for those of you who know, but I will get whatever message wants to come through. Pile number 1, I feel you don't feel in control of yourself, of your life. And it's because So that's the theme. The theme for you, pile number one, feels like you're feeling like you're not in control of your life. You feel like things are happening in front of you, but you are not participating in it. And the theme for you is to look how you hold yourself back. So if you're a pile one, the question for you is, how do I hold myself back from participating in the life that I want? So first you have to know what it is that you want. Okay? What it is that you desire. That's the first point or part in manifestation. You have to know, you have to have an idea of what you want. Okay? And then you have to direct your energy towards it, which means if you want a lot of money, you have to direct your intention and energy to focusing on a lot of money. If you focus on the lack, then you are going in the opposite direction. You are focusing your intention and you are focusing your energy. You are fueling lack with your energy. So we fuel our intentions all the time, but we don't have conscious knowing or understanding often that we actually do that. Okay? So when you hold yourself back, pile number one, you're not holding yourself back physically, but you are holding yourself back. The question is how and why? What is the purpose of holding yourself back? Here's the question. If you do hold yourself back, you must have a reason. Otherwise, you wouldn't do it. Everything we do has a reason. Most of the time, we're not consciously aware of that is, but it is there. This is when the shadow work comes in. This is where you either do the spiritual bypassing, or you are actually getting down and dirty and looking at your shadows going, this is what's stopping me from getting what I want. And it's a time or a need to look at yourself. I just heard the words, I'm not pretty enough. So some of you are, or good looking enough. Some of you are holding yourself back because you have a belief system that you're not pretty or intelligent or smart or good looking enough. The question is, why do you believe that? Okay, is it true? Okay, well, if it's really true, then those things that I just said, if it's really true, then accept it. Just accept it. Okay, chances are they're not true. It's a belief system. Okay, in fact, nothing could be furthest from the truth. Now, does that mean that every single one of you watching are good looking from scale of 1 to 10? You're all 10s? No, majority of humans is at about a 5. Okay. More than that, there's a need for you to compare yourself, because if you're saying I'm not good looking enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not this, I'm not that, then you are saying that with respect to something else. In other words, you are comparing yourself. And this is not time for avoidance right now. It's not time for avoiding the reason why you compare yourself. And the reason is very simple. At the very basis of who you are, you don't deem yourself to be quote unquote good enough. Nonsense. You are good enough to be here to do quote unquote God's work. You can substitute whatever name you want. You're here to do Source's work. You're here to create magic in this world. Source believes in you enough to say, hey, would you like to go to Earth and help humanity raise its vibration? And you're like, sure, God, Source, I'll do that. In fact, I'll enjoy the experience. You're good enough for that. So, since you are more than good enough already, because quote unquote Source, God, chose you, gave you the choice to be here, which means you're absolutely more than enough for God, then it's your belief system. Let's look at your belief system, pile number one. Why do you feel this way? Who told you so? And also, specifically, it's about the looking. At a certain point, you have to accept yourself just as you are rather than living in conflict of yourself. Because if you cannot change it, then you have two choices. You live in a battle within yourself all the time, which is creating separation, which is what we see in the world, okay? Or you accept it. If you accept it, you can then move on. If you're living inside of yourself in a battle, you're not moving on because all that energy is going into the battle, into the inner battle. So a question for you, pile number one, is, another question is, do you want to stop the battle that goes inside of yourself? Why are you battling? What are you battling? What do you get out of battling with yourself? Because again, if you, thank you, they're talking to me. If you are battling with yourself, you are not at peace. Stop comparing yourself. Give yourself more value. Now, this is an interesting statement because just the whole idea of give yourself more value, it's because you already have value within you. I just said the universe believes you have enough value to make a difference in this world, okay? It's you have to assign more value to yourself. How? The exact same way that you assign that you are not of value. You tell yourself things. I'm not this, I'm not that, I'm not good enough for this. And if it's not a conversation that you are having with your intellectual mind, that it's a conversation that's happening underneath your conscious intellect, which means it's happening inside of you without you even knowing it, but you are practicing it. So if you are holding yourself back, if you have a tendency to hold yourself back, it's because you have some level of conflict. That conflict is producing a certain feeling within you, and you follow that feeling and then you act or react accordingly. Okay? This is not a time for you, pile number one, to be stuck in hiding. The world has a lot more opportunities for you, and I want to say more than that. The world is waiting for you, but cannot force itself onto you because that's called free will. Force, whenever there is force, there is resistance. There's no need to force anything. You just have to be open. However, if you believe that you are not good enough, and that is a fundamental truth that you are holding on to, a shadow, then you're not going to be open. And the universe cannot shove things into your life. The universe cannot drop a lover if that's what you want, if you believe that they don't exist. The universe will never drop a good partner on your lap. Why? Because you don't believe that good partners exist, except that's not really true. Thank you. The universe may very well place someone amazing in front of you, but because you don't believe that's the truth, you're not going to believe that's the truth, and you're going to go, no, thank you. It's called self-sabotage. Examine your feelings and your truth about you holding back in your particular life. Boundaries. You're not executing your own boundaries properly. What does that mean? To execute boundaries means to live it. You are not living out boundaries. What does that mean? First of all, your level of confidence could use some tune-up. Obviously, if you're holding yourself back, your level of confidence is not going to be where you want it to be. I can pretty much guarantee you that. And I know that for a reason. When you are not true to yourself, you will always also have difficulties upholding your boundaries. I want to just tune more into this boundary thing because I feel like this is important. Reflect on your boundaries, pile number one. Do you have healthy boundaries? What are healthy boundaries? That's a great question. I feel that you could research what healthy boundaries are. But for one, a healthy boundary is when you tell someone, this is something I don't agree with, or I don't appreciate the way you are talking to me, or I don't appreciate you being in my face. Those are healthy boundaries. Speaking up for what you believe without disregarding somebody else's feeling and taking into accountability your feeling, but being responsible for your feeling and your actions. Speaking out and being honest about what you feel and what you need, those are healthy boundaries. Taking on somebody else's problem as yours and trying to solve it for them, that's not a healthy boundary. First of all, you will never be able to solve someone else's problem. Why? Because they need to understand why, how are they part of the problem? Okay? Same as you. If you're trying to put your problems onto somebody else and hoping somebody else is going to solve it for you, they can't. It's impossible. It'll never happen. You need to understand how you are contributing to, quote unquote, your problem. Again, shadow work. And when I say contribute, it's because you are part of the experience. So you are part of the problem yourself. And I'm not saying it in a negative way. We all contribute to our situations. Sometimes people think it's blame. No, it's just a fact. When you are experiencing something, you are part of that experience. You play a part. The question is how. So pile number 1, it's about reflecting what part you play in the experiences that you don't like. If you are in a quote unquote unhappy relationship, how are you contributing to this unhappiness? If you say, well, this person does not make me happy, then I will say that person's job is not to make you happy. That person's job is to perhaps confront you so that you can confront yourself why you are not happy. Okay? That's just an example. If you rely on other people for your own happiness, then that means that you are relying on them heavy for your own happiness. No one can give you anything that's already inside of you. They can contribute to it. They can uproot it if you're not confident, but they can never really give it to you. So if you are someone who is looking towards others for your own happiness, for example, you are afraid of rejection, so rather than speaking your mind, you hold back. That's not being true to yourself, and that's not going to be helpful in your relationship. So perhaps one of the things that you do without even realizing it is you don't speak your truth, and that's why you are in an unhealthy or unhappy relationship, or that's why you feel unhappy. Okay? Generally speaking, those who feel at peace with themselves are happy. Do they have some moments where they experience momentary unhappiness? Yes, but their status quo is happiness. Okay? I just heard, have you ever seen a monk being upset? They're always happy. They're always joyful. They're always smiling. Does that mean that they don't experience challenges and difficulties and pain? No, they just reflect on them differently. Okay, makes sense. Flexibility in reverse. So what this is telling me is that you're probably in some way inflexible or rigid in your thinking. Perhaps you're someone who believes things have to be this way or that way. The reality is very little in the world is black and white. Mostly it's all in the gray because it's all about perspectives. So if your own perspectives about you are very rigid, I will only do this or I will only do that, when those two things are not available to you, then you are missing on life. On the other hand, if you give yourself the permission to say, okay, I could experience this, I could experience that, but maybe there is something more for me to experience, then you are opening door to something more. Pile number 1, it's time for you to walk out of your own rigidity, to move out of your own rigid confinement. How do you do that? Well, first and foremost, observe and realize the things you say to yourself that are of the energy or essence. I can't do this. I'm not supposed to. I'm not allowed. I'm afraid. Every single one of us has fears. Fear is extraordinarily important in our life because it keeps us alive. That's what it's meant to do. Okay? Fear can be used also as a very creative force. but in a positive way. But it can also be misused, and it can also be abused, and it certainly holds us back. The kind of fear I'm talking about is not the one where if you see a lion chasing you, you're afraid and you have to run because I will say, I want you to be afraid. No, the type of fear I'm talking about is one where you are afraid, for example, of being rejected, and because of that, you hold yourself back. The world will never reject you for who you are, because, how do I say that, please? The world doesn't care. The world just wants you to be you. Now, when I say the world, I really mean the universe. Will people sometimes reject you? Yes. Generally, very often, it has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with them. But nobody wants to feel rejected. However, if you constantly hold yourself back because you're afraid of rejection, then you're constantly holding yourself from living fully. So pile number one, the question for you is, how could I experience my life more fully? And why am I not doing so right now? And then you'll likely come up with an answer or two, and then you'll be faced with realizing that you are in fact holding yourself back, yet you have a good reason, but you may not know what the reason is yet. And it's time for you to resolve that reason, to look at this reason, to resolve it, because it's a conflict. You holding yourself back stems from you being at conflict with yourself. Okay? So that's what I have for you, pile number one. Pile number one, my apologies, I have a rune stone for you. I almost forgot. So it's this, I believe it's called Uruz, U-R-U-Z. I am going to read this to you, but it's very apropos to the message. The rune of determination and new beginning. If you pull this, it means that life you used to live has grown out of its frame and needs to be left behind now, so that the life energy can liberate itself like a rebirth into a new one. In order to rule, you must serve first. Not sure what that means to you specifically, the last sentence, but I thought that was very apropos the message. Endings and new beginnings, and you have outgrown a part of yourself, and it's time to leave it behind. So that's what I have for you, pile number one. All right, let's see what we have for you, pile number two. So this is going to be your theme. Interesting. We have Two of Pentacles. Again, I'm not a tarot reader, so I'm just going to go strictly by my intuition. We have Time to Go in reverse. And we have Sacred Wisdom in reverse and Tree of Life in reverse. Now, this is very interesting because the first pile, all the cards were in reverse as well. So I don't really look at reversals. It all depends just what message wants to come through. But when they do show up in reverse, and I feel that this is something I need to talk about, it's just basically showing me that there is resistance. Okay. Two of Pentacles. Let me just tune to that. Okay, this is an interesting message. You are not recognizing your own talents. Either that or your assessment of your own talents and skills is very low. And I feel as a result of that, and this is how the Pentacles tie in, I feel that you are not receiving nearly as much as you'd like, or you're not receiving what you want. So pile number two, this is to do with your assessment of yourself. How you see yourself, quote unquote, big or small, depends on what you believe about yourself. Again, I am all about the shadows and all about practicing what I preach, which is looking deep within our psyche to understand what we do and how we do it, or why we do what we do. And there's some stagnant energy that I feel coming off of this image. And I hear the word independence. Whoever you are, I feel like there's a part of you that wants to experience more independence, but for some reason, this independence experience requires you to see yourself in a different light. If you don't see yourself in a different light, or if you don't start seeing yourself in a different life, you will constantly be battling with feeling like you are trapped or dependent on something or someone else. Okay? You need to be practicing more leadership skills and qualities, being your own leader, speaking like a leader, practicing being a leadership. So look up what leadership means, like tune into the idea of being a leader. When I'm tuning into this feeling, what I get is inner strength. But what I also get is indoctrination goes out the window. Being your leader, you have your own beliefs and you have your own strong beliefs. You are not oblivious to other beliefs, but you trust in yourself. You trust in your beliefs. You are not as easily influenced by the outside indoctrination. And I feel, so what I'm getting here is, in order for you to experience more financial freedom, you need to embody that authority. That authority. I hear some of you saying, I don't think I can do this anymore. I need to find something different or do something different. So this to me symbolizes endings and beginnings. Again, and I believe you have a rune that says that, but that will be at the end. You are not satisfied with where you are, and because it feels to me financially, so a lot of this will be geared towards financial freedom, or you wanting or desiring to experience more financial freedom. And it shows me stepping out of a situation and potentially moving to a new situation. But you need to first, when I say need, you don't need to do anything, but you need to first, again, in order for you to realize your goals, you have to first understand what is the need for your goal. For example, if you want a lot of money because you believe money is going to help you escape a situation that you are in, that may be the case, but really there is a deeper meaning here. You might want money because you fear that more money is going to give you more freedom. And although, yes, there is some truth to that when we are financially well, when we are comfortable, we are more free to do things in the world because we have resources. But this is different. This feels to me freedom of outside oppression. It's almost like you are feeling oppressed by someone, and that freedom is something that's lacking inside of you, and you believe that when you have money you're going to escape that. Here's the problem: you might escape that situation, but you will find yourself right back in a similar situation because you are not addressing the reason why you are in experience of that in the first place. Again, for you, pile number 2, if this describes your situation, you're afraid of being yourself in a relationship. Okay? So the question is why? Oftentimes, the culprit is the rejection. So, when you are not yourself, you are in essence rejecting yourself. And what you experience is a lot of rejection. Not only is it internally, but also externally. You fear pile number 2, rejection. Now, as a human being, rejection is not something that we want to experience. It's not very pleasant. But we cannot make the outside to our whims because we don't have control over that. Life shows up and we meet life a certain way. However, we can maneuver through different circumstances in a way that is more appropriate and not appropriate, or helpful or not helpful. What I'm getting for you, pile number 2, is that there is reluctance for you to speak your mind, and as a result of that, you're feeling oppressed. Okay, and perhaps you feel that financially, having more freedom, you're going to get away from that feeling. And what I'm going to say to you is this: you will have more financial freedom, but you will still feel oppressed on the inside. Okay, so there will be some other situation that will present itself that's going to put you right back where you started. So inner oppression. Some of you have been the feeling I get is you have been oppressed by your own dad. Maybe your dad felt very oppressed. Maybe he was not very truthful about his feelings. Maybe he was very cold. Maybe he was judgmental. There's some connection with a dad. Of course, it could be mom as well, but I'm picking up dad for those of you who this makes sense. And there's a feeling of oppression. Perhaps your own dad was or is oppressed or depressed, perhaps because he himself couldn't be himself. Okay, and you've learned from him to be just like that. And what they're saying is the universe needs you now in a bigger way. In other words, okay, I see what's happening. Chances are that many of you are moving towards a different financial freedom, okay? One where you are going to be more seen and more out in the open. If you are used to suppressing yourself and oppressing yourself, I feel like it's going to be a very difficult place for you to be in, because where you are potentially going is there is no room for you hiding. You're just going to be too much in the open. And if you have all these suppressing feelings and emotions and all these fears of rejection, it's the situation that I see you heading into, which is potentially quite big, is going to rattle you. It's I'm just seeing you being more out in the open, and being more out in the open means being more visible. Being more visible means being more in a vulnerable position. The more fear you have, or the more fear you're holding on to, the less likely you will put yourself in that situation, because you're going to be afraid. So why would you need to feel vulnerable? It's not that you have to feel vulnerable. It's I feel you will be put in a position where your vulnerability will be the greatest strength. Why? Because people need to see you at your vulnerable, at your most vulnerable. That's why they need to see you. Because that is where the healing comes from. Okay, so you are effectively some sort of a healer. Whether you call yourself that or not, I don't know. What does that mean, to be vulnerable? It's to express yourself fully and truthfully and honestly. And you have a message to spread. And if you hold yourself back, you're not going to get it done, basically, is what I'm getting. Okay. Time to go. This represents an end of a lesson. However, what this is telling me is that you're not done with a certain lesson yet. I think it's because you don't understand yet how you hold yourself back. And because you don't understand it, there's a likelihood that you will repeat the same situation again, because it's a pattern. I would really encourage you, pile number 2, what they're saying to me, to seek out help, whether it's through individual work, through reading books, through watching videos, however spirit deems is appropriate for you. I would really encourage you to look at your own inner child wounds, because your inner child is about to be on display. And your inner child, to me, represents creativity. So your creativity is about to be on display. And that is potentially very, very scary, to be on display. When you're used to holding yourself back or hiding, and then you're going to be on display, not a comfortable feeling. That's why it's really critical for you to let go of some of the baggage that you're holding on to, some of the heaviness that's that's been persisting in your life that constantly keeps you down on a certain level, well, you're graduating. You're going from here to here. But I want to be very forthright. It's not that it's happening to you. Life will present situations to you, yes, and life will ask you to meet it halfway. Depending on where you're at within your own inner world, you will either meet it in a way that's going to bring you a lot of satisfaction in the end, or you're going to meet it in a way that's going to put you right back where you started. So this is an opportunity for you to cut ties with your past. Okay? Again, endings and beginnings. Sacred wisdom. It comes up in reverse, and all this is telling me is that don't avoid looking at your own inner conflicts. Again, if you were not an individual who is wanting to really spiritually involved, you wouldn't be listening to this. So pat yourself on the back, because these messages sometimes can feel like little pin drops. Okay? This is no time to avoid your inner conflict. It's time to look the conflict in the face and say, okay, what am I conflicted with and why? Why am I so conflicted with myself? Quote unquote, what is wrong with me? Well, there is nothing wrong with you. That's the whole point. The whole point is for you to realize that there's nothing wrong with you. Never was, never will be. If you believe that there's something wrong with you, that's a concept that you believe in. It's not you. You're a part of the universe. You are part of some called God. There is absolutely nothing wrong with you. You're absolutely freaking perfect. Not according to human standards. I mean, you have your imperfections and quirks and this and that for sure, but on at the highest consciousness level, you're perfection. Okay? So the question, what is wrong with me? The answer is nothing. Now, if you believe there is something wrong with you, then we have to look at the beliefs, because that is what's causing the conflict. And this conflict is going to keep you stuck. So if you're feeling stuck right now, and if you don't know how to get out, you need to understand, what is this stuckness? Where is this stuckness coming from? Where are you stuck? Because you are probably not chained to a table somewhere. You're stuck because of your belief system. Okay. Last but not least, Tree of Life. So to me, Tree of Life represents knowledge. You possess incredible knowledge within you. You possess wisdom. You possess ancient knowledge and ancient wisdom, and it's all stored in your DNA. And those are all encodements that are ready to shine up like lights on a Christmas tree. But you have to allow it. You have to start the process. You have to ignite that. And for that, you have to go deep within. It's not going to happen on its own. Here's a possible scenario. You just keep going in circles over and over again, and you don't understand why, and you keep thinking the world is doing something to you. And the world is saying, no, we're not doing anything to you. You have to recognize how you are keeping yourself in this situation. Okay? It's about uprooting truths that are not truths, or that you don't want to be truths anymore. It's about uprooting your old systems. It's about uprooting your old beliefs, your old ideas. If you are afraid of being seen, let's work with the part of you that's afraid. Let's help it be less afraid. Let's help it relax, so that you can come more into your own body, so that you can be more present and not so in the head, which is what happens when we are not present with ourselves. I just heard, truth be known, you've always known how to do this. You just don't know how. I'm like, well, hang on. If they've always known, but they don't know how, they're saying, you just don't remember. You've done this before many, many, many times. You just don't remember. Okay? Remember the saying they said at the very beginning, be the resource and the source both at the same time. Okay? So you are a source of your situation, but you also have resources in terms of how to get out of it. The best place to seek out for this information is always on the inside. Even if it comes from the outside, you have to still check within yourself, is this true for me on the inside? And if you don't know yourself, you're not going to know that. It's pointless asking somebody for advice if you don't know what your truth is, because someone will give you advice, but you don't know what your truth is. So you'll take somebody's advice, even though it's probably not the advice you need right now, and you'll just go with it. And sure, you'll have an experience and there's nothing wrong with that, but maybe it's the wrong advice for you. But how will you know that? How will you know that? Somebody may have the most amazing advice that worked for somebody else, but it may not work for you because you're a different human. Okay. Now, chances are certain type of advices are pretty, are pretty standard. You know, if you're being kind to other people, life is going to be kind to you. We get that, right? But if you're dealing with a specific situation and somebody says, do this, that may not be the case for you. You need to know if that's right for you or not. And you're never going to know that unless you know yourself. And this is really the reason why you are here on this earth, is to know yourself, so that you can potentially help others know themselves. Remember the diamond in the rough? You're the diamond. You're the shiny light. That's what you're here to uncover, to rediscover, which means you've done it before. So that's what I have for you, pile number 2. Oh, runes, thank you. Thank you for reminding me. So your rune is very interesting because it's one of clarity. There's nothing in it. It's this one. It's clarity. It doesn't have any symbols. It is the rune of the unknowable, Odin. Empty is the end, empty is the beginning. Like the phoenix from the ashes, it rises from what we call fate. The surrender of control is the supreme challenge for a spiritual warrior. If you drag the blank rune, take courage. Trust that the universe will make self-change in your ongoing life process. How fitting is that? Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. All right, pile number 3. Let's see what we have for you as far as a theme, and I'll show you the rune, the rune stone at the very end. We have 4 of Wands, beautiful. Come to the edge, beautiful, and intimacy. Okay, and I'll reveal the rune at the very end. Again, I'm not a tarot reader, so I just tune in and then they start talking or I see things. The 4 of Wands traditionally is a very auspicious card in terms of relationships. Okay, it could be work, but it's really in terms of relationships. It's also a very fruitful message. So what I'm getting here is that for you, pile number 3, the theme is, I want to say separation and unification, even though this card traditionally does not stem from separation. But it makes sense to me logically because we did talk about the full moon being, a space of ending and then new beginnings. I feel like you are entering a new phase in your life. Several things. One is a new phase in your relationships in terms of how well it's going. For others of you, it's to do with partnerships. Okay. Okay, this is really interesting because they're showing me that it's going to be for some of you. You are used to working with groups of religious persons. And I don't know if this is in this life or another lifetime. The context is religious. And what I see is you are still working with them, but from a distance. This is the image that I'm getting, and I don't want to overanalyze it because then I'll lose the message. You are moving away from the traditional way of doing things when it comes to diplomacy, okay? And when it comes to conflict resolution, okay, that's interesting. I don't know what that has to do with religion, but that's maybe, I'm just going to keep on giving you the message. Some of you will find yourself in a situation where you are watching others and you are objecting that which what they're doing or how they're doing it. And it's almost, I'm getting judgment. It's almost like you are judging, or maybe you're being judged. It could be either way, actually. Okay, maybe you're feeling like you're being judged, but no, this feels like it's almost, you're walking away from situation because the way things are being done, I'm getting, there's a lot of judgment. Okay, so maybe that they're being very judgmental, maybe they're being very judgy, and you're standing there like, I want no part of this. You're moving away from that. So you might, thank you. You might be someone of a religious upbringing and you are choosing to no longer see yourself as a religious person, and you are becoming more at comfort with knowing yourself as a spiritual being. Okay, without the parameters and boxes of rigid spirituality or rigidity. Okay, because to be honest, this came to me some time ago. It was an awareness. Spirituality has nothing to do with religion. Religion tries to make sense out of spirituality and connect to our spiritual self, but it's not. Religion is not itself is not spirituality. It's it's a concept made by human to help us be closer to our spiritual nature. Okay? But there's a whole bunch of convoluted stuff around it that we humans implemented. So you are, looks like, moving away from that. And for some of you, this also means walking away from your family. Perhaps because your family is very judgmental or has been very judgmental, or their view or concept of religion and spirituality is, they look at spirituality and religion as a same thing, and there's a lot of judgments around that. And what you're saying to yourself is like, I don't want to participate with that anymore. So in that context, you're moving away. And in a different context is you are stepping into something that is almost a little bit unknown to you. I don't know why. I want to bring out the idea of witchcraft, spellcraft, working with nature. I want to say like white witch. I consider myself a white witch, which is basically working with spirit. But I know the idea of witchery was something that, interestingly enough, was bashed by religion. So maybe the concept of your own spirituality is now bringing out this witchiness in a positive way out of you, and you are no longer, you no longer can, it's like you don't feel you can be yourself in this religious space that you came from or that you are used to. Just be yourself. They're saying don't limit yourself by telling people you're not this or you're not that. Instead, tell people who you are. I'm a spiritual being. I'm a spiritual being. What does that mean? That's an interesting question, actually. What does a spiritual being actually mean, according to my team? Let me just see what I get. What I'm getting from my team is to know yourself as a spiritual being, not just as a human only. So that's what spirituality is. It's more than just an understanding. It's more than just a belief. It's the embodiment of our spiritual nature. We are spiritual. We are spirit. And we're also human. It's the embodiment of our spirit self, not just the human self. So, and working together. So that's what my team says in their perspective is spirituality. I like that, okay? Spirituality has within it higher spiritual laws, which are way beyond our constricted human laws. And the idea here is, how do we bridge those? How do we bring it together? How do we bridge our spirit with our bodies so that we can encompass both? That's because when we encompass both, we are at union with ourselves, with our spirit selves. Yes, we're not at odds. Makes perfect sense. Perhaps your beliefs have kept you at odds with yourself. So, very auspicious card. The traditional meaning is, new union, maybe with someone you love, maybe a wedding. It's opportunities, but also it's like your own embodiment of your true spiritual self is coming more on board. You're becoming more of yourself, and that is, well, that actually makes me want to cry, because there is nothing more profound than to realize in an embodied way who you are, which is nothing of what you think, and live that realization. That is just such a freeing, there's nothing better than that, because being in that state, you can do anything. In that state, nothing is impossible. In that state, you have an awareness that is like, okay, well, if this isn't working, this is going to work. And that's a gift. Sadly, we humans, many, I would say most, do not embody the spiritual self. That's why we see what we see in the world. We see division, we see hatred, we see dominance. That's not the spiritual self. That's the ego acting out. Okay, so you're moving away from that. That's pretty substantial. Come to the edge is basically face your fears, or don't be afraid to face your fears. Of course, if I, Joanna, didn't talk about fears, then you'd have to say, Joanna, what's wrong with you? Why aren't you talking about fears? Because it's my favorite subject. Not because I dwell on fears, but because I want to understand how a fear works, and I want to I want to move from fear into freedom. You are effectively pile 3 in a position to move from fear to your freedom, and that is not a small job. You contain within you everything that you ever need in order to be happy. You're not supposed to do anything. It's your choice. Now, of course, as a human being, you have certain laws you have to abide by. Again, embodying the spiritual self with the human self, it's a tricky thing. It's how do you, in other words, pile number 3, how do you embody both? How do I embody my true self, the truth of who I believe I am, with the part of me that's a human? How do I make it all work together? And that's quite a feat, because it means you have to let go of your own limitations, of whatever you believe makes you. What makes you is source. You are source. You are an extension of source. That's what you are. And if you don't believe that, then what do you believe? On the other hand, if you believe that you are an extension of source, do you embody it? What does it mean to embody knowing the realization that you are part of source? Well, for one, you don't identify yourself as being a human. You identify as having you don't even identify. You are having an experience as a human, but you know you're not just a human. And when you say I, you understand that what you're talking about is a concept you hold on to in order to experience world from the perspective of the I, of the ego. But you also are understanding that you are not the ego itself. Ego is something that is temporary. You're not that. How do you embody that? I have no idea. I have to think about that as Joanna, but I know that to embody that is not a small thing. For one, you see that everyone is just acting out. They're acting out their beliefs, their traumas, their dramas, and everything, and their pains. Okay? Now, the thing is that having a spiritual understanding and embodying does not absolve you from being a human. You are also a human, or having experience of a human. It's how do you embody both? That's a decision that you are making, pile number 3, but it's a very powerful position. It's a very powerful place to be in. And I guarantee you one thing, you cannot experience that and embody that by being in spiritual bypass. Never gonna happen. Spiritual bypass essentially means you're not looking at your shadows. You're not looking at your pain. But since you're listening to this, I know that you are not seeking spiritual bypass. So, control, thank you. Some of you have controlling tendencies. You want to control everything. Now, control in and of itself is a wonderful thing. We need a certain level of control. You want to be able to control your car. If you didn't, I would be worried, okay? It's not about giving control. It's how do we use control? Do we feel controlled? Do we feel in control? And is control, idea of control, out of balance? Do we fear control? Are you afraid of not having control? Okay. Now, the whole idea of control right now is very prevalent in this world. It's being highlighted. It's in our faces. Who's in control of who? And why? If you don't feel in control of yourself, the question is why? Who has control over you? Who have you given your control over? Well, they made me do this. If you're a free person, no one made you do anything. You chose to do it. You didn't like the choice you took, but likely chances are you chose it. So even though you feel that it wasn't your doing, it was. And this is not a diss. This is, again, about understanding that we, at the end of the day, have a lot of power. We tell ourselves we don't have power because we think we don't. That's not true. You cannot be power. Now, someone who feels powerless, they're not powerless. They may feel powerless, but they're not powerless. They can't be. They are power. So then we have to look at, why do we feel powerless? Why do we feel powerless? Well, chances are, if you are feeling powerless, you will have control issues. Perhaps someone used their control over you and made you feel powerless, and you've resigned inside of yourself, and you realize that you're not going to take control of your life because you don't know how. Maybe you're afraid of taking control of your own life. Is that the thing? Are you afraid of taking control of your life? What would that look like? Well, I just heard having control over my life means I would get everything I want. Here's what I want to tell you. If you had everything you wanted, you would be one sorry babe. Trust me, some of the things that you want, you don't want. You think you want them, but it's actually what you want is something very, very different. Okay? For example, this is just an example to illustrate this point. If you want to be with somebody because you believe they're going to make you feel safe, they may contribute to the safety that you are feeling, or they may show you the unsafety you are feeling, but they will fundamentally not make you feel safe. You will allow yourself to feel safe in your presence, but they can't sell you $10 worth of safety. That's not how it works. Okay? So if you're looking for someone because you believe being with someone is going to make you feel safe, it's likely not going to happen. At first you will, but then something is going to happen, because if you are entering into a relationship and you feeling a whole bunch of unsafety inside of you, that unsafety is going to come out in your relating. There's just no other way. So pile number 3, I have a feeling that there's a thing around unsafety and control, and it would be really good for you to kind of raise a flag and look into it, okay? Now, because this card is about intimacy, what I just explained to you with the control and not feeling safe, I am 99% sure that it is actually around intimacy and relationships. So pile number 3, you are likely needing to face the subject of safety within your own relationships, intimate or otherwise. Do you feel safe in a relationship? If the answer is no, why? Because there's a reason why you are being faced with it right now. There's a reason why you are in experience of it. And it's to let go of the fear that no one will want you. Okay. Pile number 3. Some of you have a really deep fear of no one wanting you. That's a tough one, because it means that was communicated to you somehow. That's a very painful wound that I would invite you to heal. And with the right attitude, with the right determination, with the right help, with the right person to hold the energy, to hold space, you can not only face it, but you can triumph it, so that you can feel much more balanced again, okay? Because in your mind, you're not feeling very balanced, and fear will make that happen, okay? So that's what I have for you, pile number 3. Remember the Cyber Monday promo. If you would like to work with me, I would invite you to book a session with me. And of course, you will receive all the 12 zodiac signs for 2024. I call them the, thank you. I call them the survival guides. They just reminded me, yes, I have a rune for you. So this particular rune is this. I don't know if you can see it. And it is, let me see what it is. It is destructive forces of nature, elemental hail. So this is interesting. This is the message. This rune indicates the existence of an urgent need in your psyche to free itself from the confines of identification with material reality and to experience the world of archetypal thinking. Pulling this rune means you can expect resolution, because it is the big awakening. I don't know about you, but that was one pretty potent message. Thank you so much for being with me. Please share this video, and please help me keep this channel growing so that more and more people can get out of their, spiritual bypass and find more happiness and more enjoyment in life, and then share it with others, and more importantly, feel more in their own power. So thank you so much for being here, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Take care.